Welcome to Echoes Down the Road, a podcast presented by the band West of House. My name is Erick, and thanks for checking out part 2 of episode 1 from our second season. Today we'll be talking about the album art from Drown the Wind, and Lance will interview Dev O'Reilly, the talented artist who created our cover. Join us today as we unlock the secrets behind this amazing piece. How do we visually represent this idea of Drown the Wind? You know, of this life force where all these outside entities are trying to smash it, to cover it, to stop it from being what it should be. You know, how do we represent that in art? And that became a very difficult question.
Yeah, I think we were pretty clueless. It is hard to encapsulate that image. Like, what image is going to explain Drown the Wind? It's such a theoretical concept. I don't think you and I or Tommy or anybody had even a clue on what or how we could do that. But of course, we liked what we got in our first album. So correct me if I'm wrong, I think you reached out to the previous artist, wherever he was, Papua New Guinea, I'm pretty sure, was where he was from.
No, it was...
Or somewhere like that. I want to believe he was Papua New Guinea, but...
Philippines. From the Philippines.
Okay, so they're neighbors.
Yeah, sure. Let's go with that. Yeah. You're right. I did. I reached out to Michael Manilow, who is amazing. His work on Crescendo Silence, and we said it last season, fantastic. Could not have been better. He gave us Antler Boy. It was wonderful. So I reached out to him, and a few days went by, and I didn't hear back. So this is a great story, I guess, depending on who you are. So how things normally come to be. So I was drinking. I was drinking a beer from Institution Ales, and I have these cans on my desk from Institution Ales, and they're on my desk because the artwork is just freaking amazing. The detail and just the depth of these pieces. It's like walking through a museum, but they're on beer cans. And so I was waiting to hear back from Michael, and I'm drinking an Institution Ale, and the first thought in my head is, why can't we contact this guy? And so I went on the interwebs, and I found him. I found the guy that does the artwork for Institution Ales, and his name is Dev O'Reilly. And so what the hell? Hey, he's on Instagram. So I sent him a message, and I just said, hey, I'm drinking the beer right now. We're about to put out an album. I don't know if you do this. I don't know if you've ever thought about it, but what do you think about doing an album cover? And so here's the fun part, Westies. Here's the fun part. Now, Lance, you had a chance to talk to Dev about Drown the Wind in this process, did you not?
Yes, yeah. So after this whole process, we got the album, it's done, yay. I reached out to Dev just to say, hey, we finished our album, and I want to thank you so much for even being a part of this project. And so I asked him if he'd be willing to do an interview with me, and he did. And so why don't we listen to that right now?
All right, here we go.
Well, welcome. I've got a special guest here with us tonight, Dev O'Reilly, who we kind of set the stage up with you guys just moments ago, but he was the artist that blessed us with our second album of West of House's label title for Drown the Wind. Introduce yourself. It is Dev O'Reilly, correct?
That's correct, yeah.
Because I've seen on your email, I think Devin's your real name. Now, where's Sullivan in all of this?
Yeah, Sullivan's my last name, and O'Reilly is my middle name. And, I just kind of felt like Dev O'Reilly had a bit more of an artistic ring to it. There's nothing wrong with Devin Sullivan, but Dev O'Reilly just kind of rolls off the tongue a little bit more.
Cool. A little Irish background there.
Very Irish, for sure.
Very cool. All right. Well, Dev, thanks again for spending the time tonight and making this happen for us. Again, just so you guys know out there, Westies, Dev is a graphic designer. He's a freelance illustrator. And like I said, he's the artist of our second album artwork. And, I think one of the questions I wanted to ask you to kind of get us how we connected with you is how this artwork came to be. I don't know exactly if you know this story, if Erick even talked to you about this, but I'm going to share with you, Dev, and then I want you to kind of tell us and our audience, what this experience was like for you. But so as in typical fashion, Erick, our lead singer, songwriter, he's the one who initially reached out to you. So he was having a few beers, which typically is his start to inspiration. And he was thinking about our next album's artwork. And of course, in his hand, he was holding an Institution Ale. And he was just looking at that artwork. He actually, and this is true, well before this even inspired him, he's got at least 5 or 6 cans, ironically, of your artwork from the brewery, some of his favorites that he's kind of cut the top off, his pen and pencil holders now for him. So he's looking at this, and of course we were thinking about using the same artist we had from our first album, but he had this crazy idea about reaching out to Institution Ale or whoever this artist out there in the ether. And he calls me up and he's like, "Hey, bro, Lance, what are we going to do for our album? We could obviously go with the guy we went with first. He was amazing. We know how much he costs. But I have this crazy idea." I'm like, "What are you thinking, man?" And he told me what his thoughts were. I said, "That's a no-brainer. We got to reach out. At least let's take it worth a chance because we have no idea who you are. You might be this world-famous guy who's in his 50s, 60s. His whole career's behind him. We don't know. We have no idea how much you're going to charge us or even quote us." And so he reaches out to you, I'm guessing through email, but what do you remember about that first contact with Erick?
I just remember the timing kind of working out really perfectly because beforehand I was talking to some friends and I was really interested in doing an album cover. And then I think he either slid into my DMs or he shot me an email. I can't really remember. But I just remember getting that email and being really stoked about it and just starting to brag to people about it before I even accepted it.
So you're saying you talked to your friends prior to that email about doing an album art?
I think I did, yeah. I don't normally respond right away because I like to think about things a little bit. My schedule is kind of hectic. So, I'm pretty sure I did talk to a couple of my friends and, tell them that I just got offered this gig and that I was probably going to take it. So it worked out pretty perfectly.
Art is something that Erick and I take really seriously, and not just our own, but more importantly, those out there trying to do a career off this. And so, but when we're meeting people like you, Dev, like we know normally that we want you to kind of run with your thoughts. It's kind of like if we make this relationship or marriage happen and, we just kind of like, hey, here's our vision, but like, can you just take it where you want it to go? And I don't know about you, but the process went really smoothly on our end because I think after Erick, you said yes and gave the quote. Erick said, "All right, let's do this." I don't think it was more than a week or two later, the three of us were meeting for like some type of vision meeting or something. And tell us a little about what you remember about that meeting, because I know Erick and I, after we hung up, I'll share our perspective and how we felt. But what do you remember about that first meeting or two?
Cool. Yeah. Well, it was my first time meeting both of you. So it was really just cool hearing the story about how you guys found me and why you thought I was the right man for the job. And then I got to learn a little bit about the band and hear about the album and the concepts going in behind that. So there was a lot of really fun information that went that I was able to listen to, and it was great to be able to connect with you guys and meet face to face because with some of my commissions I don't even really get to meet my clients. It'll all just be done over email, and then I'll just ship a piece over or whatever, or I won't meet them until I drop off the print or so. It was nice to be actually able to build a connection before I even got started on the project.
So remind me, did Erick send you like some albums, music, and lyrics? What did he exactly give you? Because if I remember, you had some, I don't know, he gave you something, right?
I think he sent it to me after our first meeting, I'm pretty sure, after we were able to talk about it. But yeah, he sent me some of the finished tracks and some of the unfinished tracks. I think it was all the tracks that were on the album though, and I think he sent me some of the older stuff and all the lyrics and everything as well. So I got a pretty good look at what you guys do. You guys were definitely very, very conceptually driven, which I actually really appreciate, because I'll get clients who will just say, you know, just run wild with it, do whatever you want with it. But sometimes the scariest thing to an artist is the blank page. Because, you know, it's just infinite potential just staring at you, you know, it's like kind of like an abyss. And so having this, a strong concept to start from, knowing that this is where you guys wanted to start from, gave me a good foundation to kind of launch off of. And
I don't know, one of the questions I was thinking about is how different was this process working with us, an album art, couple hacks, versus like your normal process in designing a beer label for Institution?
Right,
or
right.
Any other freelance work, I guess you could bring that up too.
No, this is really a fun topic. So for the beer labels for Institution, the way that it works, and we've got this system, you know, dialed in. I've illustrated over 80 beer labels, so it's streamlined by this point. But with Institution, they'll just throw me a name, and then I'll generate 4 concepts. They won't really have a concept in mind before I start the concepts. They'll just give me the name, and they'll be like, okay, just generate 4 concepts and then send them in, and then we'll pick one. And you know, and it works pretty well with Institution because the artwork that I do for them and their whole kind of branding and theme is just really off the wall crazy stuff, so I can get away with a lot. But you guys were very conceptually driven, so it was a lot more clear cut in terms of like imagery and kind of the moodiness that you guys wanted to present in the project. So yeah, it was nice to have that kind of backbone already there.
Very cool. Now you Westies out there heard that right. 80 different labels. Institution gives you 3 or 4 label or names. Do they, and then you kind of go with that. Do you also get like what kind of beer it is? Does that inspire you if it's a porter or a stout or an IPA, or like, is that part of that process too in your designing? Because some of your images, if you're not familiar, please check him out. Institution Ale Company. It's all over the place, and we'll give you some more info at the end that you can check out a lot of the specific art that Dev did. I did a little stalking and research today, looking you up. So you don't have the labels on a lot of those images, so you get to see the whole image kind of unfettered. It's really pretty, but they all have a very, I would say similar, but this very specific signature that you have. A lot of very detailed, I don't want to say a lot of death oriented, but it's like some darkness, some contemplation, some kind of just really cool details. So like, does the actual flavor or the line of the beer kind of lead you in some of those designs?
Yeah, definitely. Not always. I'd say, interestingly enough, like specifically for like porters and stouts, like I don't know why, but every time I always feel so compelled to like make the beer feel like it matches that type of style, but everything else is just like whatever I'm feeling. But with the porters and stouts, you know, they'll always be like neutral brown tones, or you know, something with like a warmer earthy tone to it, so it kind of feels like a coffee stout or like a darker beer. But nice. No, I mean, you know, the colors and the content can vary a lot depending. It really comes down to the name, and yeah, they're all over the place. The names are really off the wall, and I didn't really even know what to do with them at first, because they're so crazy. I used to take them so literally, and I didn't really know how crazy I was allowed to get with the cans until I started slowly pushing my boundaries and seeing how they did. And then they just slowly got more detailed and darker and creepier and weirder, and they started and awesomer,
if that's a word.
Yeah, and better, and you know, they started feeling more like what I wanted to do. and they started to, I think people started to recognize them more. People started to realize that the artwork was really coming through. And I think that, my boss, the owners of Institution, they really saw that as well. And it's kind of funny how good something comes out when it's something that you actually really, really want to do, when you're making it out of your own breath, essentially.
For sure. And I want to come back to that in a little bit, but going back to our album, I want to go back to that. After our first meeting, I told you I was going to tell you, when Eric and I hung up with you, we were very impressed, and maybe I think you were wearing glasses at the time too, so it added that, but we realized we knew you were young, but we didn't know how young, and I'm going to ask you about your age here in a second, because I'm just curious about this, because you're in a place in your life with your career that I think it can be very inspiring for people and listeners. And I'm probably, because I work in education, I think it's so valuable to hear people's testimony on how they became where they are in life and all that stuff. But I'm getting a little distracted by myself. So we hang up with you, and Eric and I stayed on. I don't know if I think we were doing a Zoom, I think. And we were both like super enamored and super impressed with you. You held us a couple, I don't know, we're always chasing squirrels and doing some tangents. And you kind of kept that meeting. It almost felt like you were controlling that meeting in a way that we thought was super professional. And we were impressed with that. Obviously, your work. And again, if you guys haven't seen the artwork for Institutional, you got to check that out. And so we were so pumped up about this. And we decided, we're not going to tell the rest of the band, that we're not going to tell them what we're doing. We just told them that we're talking to Institution. We're going to see how this project goes. And then the other fact is, because our experience with some other artists, we just said, hey, will you do this? We gave them some insight like we did with you, gave them some concepts of like kind of where the album and kind of the message that the album is hoping to convey to our listeners. So we've got that wind or that light orb. I think that for us, there was some great significance of him reaching out to it, but not touching it. Do you recall that part of it?
Yeah, I do. You guys really wanted to put an emphasis on this kind of, he's almost got it, but he's not quite there. So it was kind of more of like a look into the journey rather than to the destination of where we're trying to go, and just kind of trying to bring us into this moment, this pivotal moment of transcendence. And, next to this moment, you have this really dark and eerie background, and I think that kind of really helped to play up the mood of, the setting, and the not only the physical setting, but also the mental setting of this character, and kind of tied into the overall feeling of the album. I really like the idea of having a younger central figure in the artwork, because it kind of represented youth and this innocence that somehow kind of, as it goes through life, becomes darker and goes through much harder times and can become a bit calloused, but there's still this element of hope that's contrasting it, like our orb of wind that we can reach for and kind of transcend our own darkness.
Yeah, we also love the fact that it was a youthful figure for that exact reason, especially kind of a teenage-ish looking boy, where, they're in the world, but they're kind of becoming an adult, and there's that kind of yin and yang being pulled towards certain things in life, be it good or bad. And so, yeah, we love the fact that you hit a younger boy. I don't even know if we talked about that, but you definitely nailed it.
Yeah, I think it was in the concepts that I put they were all, younger figures. And, I think we were all a bit angsty when we were teenagers. I know I definitely went through a couple phases of where, I wasn't in the best mindset, but as I moved on through life, I definitely was able to come more of my shell.
Talk about that darkness behind him and how you go about creating what we mentioned, this negative space.
Right. Yeah. So it's actually kind of funny how that came about. There were multiple concept sketches, and Me personally, I love putting severed heads in like everything, and they were in one of the concept sketches, and you guys were like, wait, we really like that, but we also like this other concept sketch where there's like tendrils coming off of the character because of the wind, and you guys suggested, what if we combine the two and kind of made it a more subtle thing where the tendrils are coming off the character, but you can still see these kind of I guess scarier demonic faces in the negative space of the tendrils, and it's always a fun addition. And whenever I show people the album cover, it takes them a little bit to notice, and once they do, they get really excited about it. So having that extra element in there to kind of have people find out is really cool.
Yeah, I do love that delay. Aha, like that to me is what makes your art so cool, because there's so many dimensions and elements in a lot of your work, and that definitely came true here. And adding that hand kind of reaching out, which is funny because we talked about that, I remember, but it's really an opposite direction, because as you're saying, his sweatshirt is kind of melting away or blowing away, and it's part of him. And so, one interpretation is those demonic faces are pulling off of him and being blown away by the wind, but then that hand is literally coming the opposite direction, reaching out, not touching him, kind of like the orb, where it's kind of that temptation where it's still there if he wanted to turn his back around and kind of re-enter that darkness behind him, which I love that kind of juxtaposition.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to see that the image, it looks like the tendrils are coming off and he's kind of transcending this darkness, but it's still pulling away from him. He hasn't quite gotten away from it yet, and so I'm glad that came through, that it's still kind of this battle that he's going through.
Yeah, I love that tension. And one more thing I wanted to ask you about, and one of my favorite parts actually is his left hand, where God, you're a master of lighting, where all of us, especially I think boys, but there's something about when you have a flashlight and you put it on your hand and you can kind of see through your hand and you kind of get that blood red. And those of you who hopefully have seen this or haven't yet, like you see that through the fingers, which I think is such a cool touch. So right on with that. But I wanted to ask you, talk to us about the significance for you and the boy's face. It being young and innocent, but yet it's fractured. And I think a lot of people miss that too. You got to really look closely or zoom in if you got a digital version of it to see that. Talk to us about that. What were you thinking there?
Yeah, I think symbolically it just worked out really well with what you guys wanted to bring to the table with the album. It brought together this element of brokenness that you guys wanted to represent in the album. And it's also a reoccurring theme that happens in my own work. I think it really, I'm really fascinated by things that can change the subject content so drastically, but so subtly. So, when you take lines and put them on somebody's face and make it look like porcelain, it's a completely different picture now. It's right. It's become something completely different, and it's completely changed the scene. So I'm really fascinated by those little things that can really change the picture, and it was also a symbolically strong element.
Yeah, it definitely brings depth to that image and makes you think, like, why would he have his face fractured? Like, that's what we love, not only in your art and how this album art turned out for us, but even in our music, where I know Erick, he's a master at this, and I love this about his writing, where you hear lyrics and you're like, oh my gosh, this is what it means to me, but it might mean something totally different to somebody else who listens to it. And that, I love that, because it shouldn't just be a very black and white, here it is, this is what everyone knows I'm talking about, and you gain your own meaning to it, and that's powerful. And I think your art nails that as well.
Thank you.
So like I mentioned, I wanted to move a little bit back to you. We feel like you're kind of a friend of the band now, and if you don't, well, you've been adopted and you're part of the family, and
I appreciate
you don't
it.
have say with the family. But so I noticed when I was being a stalker online today that you had graduated from Cal State University, Channel Island.
Correct.
And that was last year?
Last spring. No.
To
it was,
2020.
Yeah, 2020. Yeah, exactly.
So I told you I was going to ask you this. So how old are you? I'm so fascinated by this.
How old do you think I am? Because I look pretty young.
You do. I mean, after Eric and I met with you when you were wearing glasses, which probably aged you a few years, I think I said like late 20s. And I would guess that since you just graduated, and most artists that I've met that actually go to school, they're not doing it straight out of high school. They're not banging that out in 4 years. There's generally a voyage that maybe they've tried what their parents wanted or what they're supposed to do in life. And then generally the arts and humanities come out later as like something happened in their life where they're like, you know what, screw that. I'm going against the grain. I want to do what I'm passionate about, what I'm in love with, and I'm just going to see where that takes me. So that's kind of what I wanted to ask you about. Well, I guess, okay, if I were to guess now, I'll say 26.
Oh, so close. 27. I'm surprised. 27. Yeah. Normally people, when they see me and they find out I'm 27, they're like, oh my God, I thought you were 18. I'm like, wow, really?
Nice. Well, there's no way you're 18 after that first interview with you,
right.
Or the meeting, because we knew you were polished enough in the industry. There's no way you just got out of high school. But
yeah, I've had plenty of experience thanks to institution. So, it's just a streamlined process for me.
And I wanted to hit that before I go down about where you got to where you are now. But you shared a story with us before. How did you get to like where you are with institution? What's that backstory?
Right.
On how you got married with institution?
It's such a fun story.
It is.
So we have to go back to when it all started on my 21st birthday, actually. And on my 21st birthday, one of my buddies, he brought me a growler from Institution back when they were just a tiny little tasting room that probably held only 20 people, could only hold 20 customers in there. They only had 5 employees. Were you really
21?
I was really no, I swear to God, 21. I was drinking well before I was 21, but this was the first time. This was the first time I'd ever. Yeah, this is the first time I ever tried Institution. And so one of my buddies bought me a little growler, and I tried it, and I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. And he said, yeah, this was made in Camarillo. And I was like, okay, I need to go there tomorrow. And so that's what I did. And I walked in and I fell in love. And I knew immediately that I wanted to be the artist for this place. And so I was kind of looking for a job anyways, and I was trying to apply as a bartender. But they were literally such a small brewery at the time that they could only have 5 bartenders on deck. And so they said, just email us in a month. We're going to be moving to a new location, and we'll have a bunch of spots opened up for, a bunch of positions. And, they got to know me because I would come in weekly and just have beers and hang out and draw and, just hang out. And so I bothered them for the next 6 months. I just emailed them every month, said, hey, can I have a job? Hey, can I have a job? And then finally they said, yes, we're opening up a new spot. Come by for an interview. And they interviewed me, and luckily I had a ton of restaurant experience. So I kind of fit like a glove in there, and I was really able to be a crucial part when they opened. I was one of the first bussers that ever worked at Institution, and I moved up to being a bartender pretty quick. But, this whole time that I'm working there, my intention.
And how long was that?
So I've been working for Institution for 5.5 years. So I didn't start doing their artwork until about 2 years in, right? Okay. And they knew that I was an artist, and I would do this annual challenge called Inktober, where you would do an ink drawing every day of the month. And it was just, I wasn't really a professional artist at the time. I wasn't selling art. I was just making art because I loved it. It was really, a passion thing. And I was in school for it too. But, I asked my employees or my coworkers at Institution, I said, hey, I'm doing this thing called Inktober. Do you want one? And just for free, and you can give me any theme or whatever you want, and I'll make a piece of art about it in this Inktober style. And, nice. And so everybody at Institution had one, including my boss. And so that kind of, sat there on his desk. And when they got a canning line, he was the first, he came to me first for the artwork, and he said, "Hey, we're about to start canning, and we could use some art. Do you mind if we use some of these Inktober drawings for some of the can art?" And I said, "Yeah, that'd be great." And so I think we used 2 of the Inktober drawings, and then it just started going custom.
Nice.
And so, that's where the whole name and then artwork came from. So they'd give me the name, and then I generate the concepts and then make an ink drawing. So, and they were only here and there, I wasn't doing all the can labels. We had generic labels, and the artwork labels were only supposed to be like limited releases. So it would be like it would come out with the artwork once, and then it would go to a generic label. So it'd be the same beer, but it would only have the artwork on it once. So we wanted that kind of exclusivity. But then we started realizing that the beers with the artwork on it sold better. So then we started bringing them back and started doing more of them, and then
job security.
Yeah, and then I went digital, and that's when it all changed. And I went digital because I took a digital illustration class at Channel Islands, and it completely changed the game. And, it's kind of funny. When I first took that digital illustration class, I was so out of my depth. I thought I was in the wrong class. I was ready to drop it just because it was so difficult, and it was just not what I was used to. But I stuck through it, and eventually, at the end of the class, came out on top. And I told my boss, I said, "Hey, I'm doing digital art. It looks way cleaner. It looks way better. Let's start running can labels with this." And he said, "Yeah, sure. Let's do it." And nice. So then the progression after that was just insane. I mean, I progressed more in a year than I did in like 10. That's what it felt like. And so then I was just doing all the labels, and then the graphic designer that was at institution left. And so this graphic design position opened up. And the graphic designer role, they do like the flyers, they design merchandise, they design gift cards and a bunch of stuff like that. And I didn't have any design experience. I didn't know how to use the design program. So I told my boss, he asked me if I wanted to be the designer. I said, "Hey, look, I don't have any design experience. Let me take a couple classes first, and then I'll get back to you." So I stacked a couple design classes on top of each other, which was insane because one design class is like 3 regular classes because they're so much work. And so I just buried myself in these classes. And, after 4 months of taking these courses, I said, "All right, let's do it." And I had no idea what I was doing, but I figured it out along the way, and my boss was really happy with the results. And then I eventually just went full-time into design and illustration, and I got out of the tasting room. I was a bartender for 3 years.
Okay. So you're going to college, obviously, during that.
Yes.
And what a fortunate time for you, because you're literally about to have this career, it seems like, and you probably couldn't have done what you did without also concurrently being, in school.
Correct. 100%. If I didn't go to school, I would have never been exposed to those new mediums and, new things. I'm kind of a weird breed of an artist because new things actually scare me a lot. So, if thankfully school forcefully exposed me to these new things and these new techniques, and I was able to apply them immediately. And the people at my school, my teachers, they saw that, and they were so happy about that, obviously, because that's exactly what they want to happen. So it was best case scenario all around.
So were a lot of your homework assignments or projects for school actually what you were doing for money through institution? I mean, what percentage would you say?
That would have been smart, but no. So I was actually, when I was in school and when I was making illustrations for institution, and I still am doing illustration for institution, I was probably producing maybe 3 to 4 times the amount of art than everybody that I knew at school, just because of, I would get 4 labels in 1 month at institution, and one illustration project at school you'd have a month to work on it, right? So it's like I'm doing a semester's worth of work in 1 month plus my school project, right? And that was just for one. Then I'd have 3 other classes that I'd have also art projects in. So, there would be some months where I'd be making 7-8 pieces of art in a month, and that was kind of insane. And luckily I'm young and energetic, so I was able to, stand up to the test. Yeah, exactly. Because looking back, I don't know how I did it. It was kind of brutal, but I I think that's what attributed to the growth that I saw that happened a lot faster than some of the people around me. And honestly, I don't necessarily think it was because of talent. I just think it was because of volume. I was kind of pinned in
opportunity,
volume and opportunity. Yeah. I was pinned into this position where I had to make a bunch of art,
Yeah.
and that turned out to be one of the best things for me. Granted, it was pretty stressful at the time, but also, the progress that happened after that was amazing, and it kind of propelled me into where I am right now.
Yeah, and it's clearly chiseled your ability and your quality too. I mean, all of the pieces that I've seen are super solid. There's no like, I mean, I couldn't even say what progression, like where you started, where you finished, because I think you've just evolved in a way so naturally and fluidly where the art speaks for itself, and then, oh yeah, there's this awesome liquid inside you get to enjoy as well, which there aren't a lot of labels out there that you can say that. There's a few, but nothing's like Institution. I think my friends and I all feel the same way. It's kind of second to none. So, and I'm not just blowing. Yeah, no, you're welcome. And we're not just blowing smoke up your tail. That's for sure. Okay, so last kind of things here. Besides Institution, what else are you up to these days? Other current projects. You on your website, which you'll plug here in a little bit. Freelance is something you also list. So, how often, besides obviously doing a band label, which woohoo, that was awesome. But like, what else is going on out there besides Institution?
Yeah, so freelance has been going crazy lately, and I'm kind of at this weird point in my career where it's like, there's so many brilliant opportunities out there, and I've only been out of school for about a year, and every time a cool opportunity lands on my desk, I kind of drool a little bit, and because it looks so enticing, it's like, this looks like so much fun. And so I'll jump on it, and then another one will come by and I'll jump on it too. And all of a sudden I'm just buried in work, like way more work than I can handle. And, it's an amazing thing to be able to have all these opportunities. And some of the freelance gigs have been, I'm working on a commission right now for somebody of a portrait of her and her sister, but like in this weird retro sci-fi scene, and it's just like super cool. And I did a temporary tattoo commission, and I did an illustration commission of somebody's girlfriend in this like crazy sci-fi landscape. And so freelance is just kind of all over the place, and it's super fun. But I'm kind of at this crossroads right now, trying to figure out if I want to keep taking freelance work, or if I want to start working on my own projects. And because at the end of the day, I'm not sure if I want to be known as the guy that does commissions, because I have my own ideas and I have my own projects that I want to work on. But it's hard to turn down these opportunities because they're so fun and they're so enticing.
Right, and it's guaranteed money also, versus
exactly.
You make something and then somebody has to want to buy it, which
exactly.
I would think over time that'll happen. And you had a few images, I think, on your website that I'm assuming are your own personal pieces.
Yes, correct. Yeah.
Not commission type things, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. And I'm starting to work in for my own personal projects too. I'm trying to work in a different style than the Institution stuff. Just because I think it's become so iconic and so well branded with them. Like, I don't want to just be known as Institution's artist, although that's, an amazing thing. I want to be known as my own artist. And I'm always kind of constantly exploring style, and I think it's getting me into a bit of trouble right now, to be honest, because I look at my Instagram page and it's kind of been lacking consistency, but I can't really be too mad about it because it's just so much fun.
Yeah. Well, why don't you plug yourself? How can people find you out there on the old intranet? Yeah,
so I'm mainly on Instagram, and my Instagram handle is @TheDevO'Reilly, and that's TheDevO'Reilly. And my website is thedevoreilly.com, and I have a skateboard and some prints available. I have a portfolio, a little about me section, and I should have some more fun stuff coming out. soon.
Yeah, and a picture of him so you guys can see how handsome this young man is. This 27-year-old.
Thank you, sir.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much, Dev, for not only blessing West of House with your amazing art, but also for spending a little time with me tonight so that I can interview you about our project and our collaboration, but also hear a little bit about your backstory and what you're doing to plug your art. So we thank you.
Thank you, Lance. And it was a real pleasure getting to work with you guys. And, feel free if you guys have another project, just reach out.
Absolutely, we will. And thank you guys out there for listening. And I hope you guys look into Dev O'Reilly. Again, his Instagram at @TheDevO'Reilly and TheDevO'Reilly.com. Thank you, Dev. You have a great night.
Thanks, Lance. Take care.
Now, see, that guy, Dev, is just the coolest cat in the world. And his oh my gosh, I've lost words because that's how good the interview is. Lance, you knocked it out of the park. Going over how he created that and the things he was thinking and, springboarding off the ideas we gave him. It's just really cool. So great job, Lance. Hooray.
Yeah, that Dev guy, he's an old soul. I love just talking with him because he's quite a bit younger than us, but he just seems like he's been doing this forever. And how blessed, as you guys heard, that he's never done an album project like this before, and his first one is for West of House. How cool is that?
Yeah, I'm looking. I've got the album cover pulled up. I think I've shared the screen with you guys, so you're forced to look at it. And if you guys are listening at home, pull up the album cover. The detail of this kid. So you've got this kid, and he's got the flowing blonde hair. And if you go on our social media, you can see a time lapse of how Dev created this, which is amazing. The kid used to have black hair, actually. In the time lapse, you see it turn blonde. But the thing that gets me, there's three things I love about this. And you guys can jump in and talk after me, but I'm going to do it first because I've got the mic and, well, I can. So first is the wind, which is represented in the orb. That orb that the kid is reaching out for. The detail on that is just beautiful. But even better than that, you look at the kid's face. And this is one thing, that Lance and I, that Dev did, and Lance and I really loved. And it's the cracks in the kid's face. Because he's not complete. He's not put together. And he's got these cracks. It's almost like a porcelain doll. He's got these... the cracks could be a metaphor for anything, his weaknesses, his failings, but it's such a beautiful piece of the art. And then the thing, Hartford Whalers all the way, the negative space, man, the negative space of the demon heads coming after him, which I swear I've shown this to countless people, and very few of them see that right away. I don't know. Have you guys experienced that too, where when you show them the album, do they recognize the little devil heads trying to get this kid and drown his wind right away?
No, they do. They see the hand, and most will pick up the top, the little demon face. It's the lower one that just is invisible at times.
It's beautiful.
I think for a lot of people,
it's genius.
And that's my favorite one.
Yeah, it's just genius. And kudos. Now, Tommy, we're gonna throw the mic to you. Now, Lance and I ran with the art. We just went ahead and did it and talked to Dev and planned this whole thing. So you just got shown the art. We're like, here's the cover, Tommy. So why don't you give us your thoughts? What were you thinking? What happened when you saw this? What's going through your mind?
Well, this was not unlike when we saw Antler Boy for the first time.
Well, that was something. Go back to, was that episode 1 we talked about it? Because I remember that conversation where at first I saw Antler Boy and I was like, what the F is this? And then, it took me about 10 minutes when I started talking to Michael about it, and I was like, oh, you're a freaking genius, man. Sorry to digress. Go ahead, Tommy.
Well, this is kind of the same way. Like you look at it initially and you're like, what? What does this have to do with anything? And then, you take some time and and kind of look at it and study it and come back to it and let it process, subconsciously. Then you look at it again and you might see something else. And I'll have to say, not that I've spent a ton of time studying the album cover, like I've seen it and it's, it's tiny. It's on my computer screen somewhere, or, it's 2 or 3 inches, but you have had it up on our Skype and I've just been kind of looking at it while we talk about it. And I am seeing things I didn't see before, like the demon heads. I didn't really notice those at first.
Wait, is right now the moment where you're first seeing the demon heads?
Well, yeah, and if you would have, when you guys were chatting, like you talk about me hanging out on my couch and I'm all sprawled out like a starfish, but I like actually set up and got close to it because I didn't notice the crack in his face and I didn't notice some of the little details. It was just like, wow, this is a really cool piece of art, and it kind of has some wind. Cool, kind of like that. I just didn't have the ability to just sit here and stare at it for 10 minutes and see things in it. So yeah, it's new to me too, and it's the album for the band I'm in. I do know though that we did have a small discussion about whether or not to have the band name on the album cover and the title.
That's true. That's a good point. Let's talk about that. So when we talked to Dev, Lance and I, we were actually in the camp that said, don't even put any text on the cover. Let's let the art speak for itself.
Yep. And,
Tommy was not in that camp. And, looking at it now, so what Dev did, Dev gave us just the art the way it was. And of course, Lance and I loved it. And then he did it with the text. And if you're looking at it now, I invite you to pull it up. The West of House, it's of a color that is very subtle. And it works. And Drown the Winds in the bottom right-hand corner. And I think Tommy was right that it was a good call to put the text on the cover. Because Crescendo, we just went like, bam! And put, West of House right across the top. You've never heard of us, here's who we are. And it was in your face. It was. It took up like a third of the art. But this one, I think the way he did it, maybe Tommy, you'll agree, that it's there and it's good and there's good branding, but it's also very tasteful and respectful to the art.
Yeah, I agree. And I know that we did talk about other bands that have done really cool artwork without putting their band name on it. But I feel like those bands were a little more well known than us. And I just kept.
Well, we're not as well known as Dark Side of the Moon, no. Pink Floyd. we're not in that. We're not in that echelon yet.
Not yet. But I thought, this is really cool, and I don't know if people are going to get it right off the bat. So we probably should put some help on there for them, so they can look up, Google West of House, Google Drown the Wind, and find out what is this all about.
Yeah, I agree with you, Tommy, on that. My whole thought was, I think we decided we're not going to do CDs. Don't really know about a vinyl, but we're going to have it on digital music. The name and the title are freaking right under all the artwork, so doesn't need it because they already comes with names. But in retrospect, it is cool, and I think what Dev did really good job, and I don't think I'd realized it till just now. He knew where Eric and I's hearts were. We're like, we don't want to detract from the art. We want the art to speak loudly. So we're pretty torn on even including our name and brand. And so I think he heard that, and like you mentioned, Eric, he did it very subtly. It's tasteful, but it's kind of invisible. You don't notice it when you're staring at all the parts of the art. But it's there if you want to notice it, kind of a thing.
Yeah, he just nailed it. And when I eventually print this up and put on my wall, I'll, of course, take the text off because the artwork is so great. But, no, he did a great job. And the one thing I love, and I know, Lance, I've talked about this, and I don't know if you guys at home have realized this. So this kid, he's not in full physical form yet. And that was the one thing Lance and I talked to Dev about. Is he's part of that, that spiritual ghostness, the demon hands. He's originally part of that. And it's only by grabbing that wind, the orb, that he becomes corporeal. I don't even know if I said that right, but corporeal. Is that right?
I don't even know what that means.
That he becomes flesh. There we go. And that you still see parts of him, like the wind is kind of blowing him off because he's still spirit, but that grabbing the wind is making him whole. And it's just, my God. Dev, if you're listening, grand slam, brother. Just a grand slam. And the beauty of it is we didn't direct the original concept. Now, once she gave us some concepts, we started saying, make that a hand pointing, make that a demon face, build the orb up. But these were his original concepts. This was his dream. Because we believe in giving an artist, the space to create. We talked about this last season when we talked about the cover. We're not graphic artists. So why would we direct every facet of art? No, we're going to give the artist the space to create something, and then we're going to go from there. And that's exactly what Dev did, and I could not love it more.
The whole cracks in the face, Eric, I think he started with it when it was originally one of his renditions, and then he took it away. And I didn't think anything of it until it was gone. And then I was like, wait, we need to get those cracks in the face back.
Oh, definitely. The cracks,
and
they
then he
say
brought it
so
back
much.
At the end. They do, but he took it away like one of his renditions. And I don't think I noticed them as awesome as they were until they were gone.
Dev has a pretty rad Instagram page, and I think everybody should go check it out.
You know what? You're right. And if you are looking, to follow Dev on social media, which you should, go on Instagram. And you need to follow the Dev O'Reilly, TheDevoreilly, the Dev O'Reilly, and follow his stuff. His artwork is amazing. You'll see a ton of stuff for Institution Ales, which you should be drinking because it's glorious. And yeah, give him some love because that guy deserves it. And we'll see what happens with album 3. But now we've got 2 artists in our toolkit who have
and still only one drummer.
For
all the firings you
for now.
Oh,
for now, Tommy.
I have a question. I got reprimanded for.
I have an answer.
Teasing the album early. So why did we decide to release it without any fanfare as a surprise?
It's a great question. Let's throw it to Lance.
Oof. I
don't know. Next.
I can safely say I have no idea, but it kind of was cool in the sense of just punching people in the face as a 1-year reunion. So I thought it was just a fun trick.
So should we go deep? That I have a reason for everything.
Of course.
And the reasoning behind the surprise release was why the hell not? I had no reasoning, actually. It was just, I don't want this to sound self-serving. To release Drown the Wind in 364 days after Crescendo of Silence, it was basically, why the hell can't we? It was a goal that was in front of us, and we had a chance to do it, and then to do it as a surprise and just throw it down when no one would expect it. Because literally, no one is expecting an album that fast these days. Sure, the Doors did it. The Doors did like 5 albums in 18 months.
Black Sabbath.
Sabbath,
obviously.
all those bands out there, they were doing 2-3 albums a year.
Rush did a bunch like that in their beginning too, which is amazing.
Yeah, and no one does it now. So no one was expecting it. So I went silent on social media for the most part on purpose, just to see what would happen. Now, obviously, this is being released months after the album has come out, but already it's getting traction. And some of the central themes of the reviews we've been getting have been, wow, this came out fast. I think that's, again, not to toot our own horn. We're not building up what we've done, but it was necessary for us to get this stuff out and to put forth this completion of Crescendo of Silence, if you will. And so it came in 364 days. And I am so proud of that.
Yeah, I love it.
And it's not to brag. It's not because, yeah, we're awesome, we did this. It's just because it's the nature of this band. It's the makeup of this band that we have so much to share. We have so much to get out there that we want to give to you, because we've said it 1,000 times in season 1. Once we release the songs, they are no longer ours. And we really enjoy when they become yours, and hearing how you relate to them and hearing how certain songs affect you. And already we're hearing like, wow, I listened to Sunshine Girl and it became this experience. Or even my own kid, she's like, I listened to Oracle 7 times on repeat because it's just badass. That makes me really happy. And it's kind of like Crescendo. All these people I talk to, they've all got a different song. They've all got something different that they resonate with. What do you guys, it's only been out as of recording, 5 days right now. The album's been out 5 days. But what are you hearing from people? Is it all the same stuff? Because with the first album, it was like Moving Shadows. That's the shit. That was the song that kind of resonated with people. And it is awesome. Don't get me wrong. But people had different favorites. What are you guys hearing right now?
I think I've played it for a few of my friends and coworkers, and obviously we're not sitting and listening to the whole album, but Entwine has often been one I've shared right away just because it also has a music video, and man, people really dug on that song probably more than any others, and I think partly it's because that's mostly what I've shared, but that one actually drove somebody to tears, which I'll save that story for when we get to that song.
I really want to hear that story. And that's episode 3. Is that Entwined?
By the way, that'd be episode 3. Those were good tears of joy.
Oh, I hope so. Because if they're bad tears, edit this out. We don't want to share those. But
it was pretty awesome.
To be honest, I got a similar reaction from someone. And we will talk about that in the Entwined episode. So I encourage you guys, if this is your first one, stick with us until season 2, episode 3. Because when we hit Entwined, shit's gonna get real. It's heavy stuff. So that's cool though. And Tommy, what's your feedback? What are you hearing? What are people saying?
I'm hearing a lot of people are liking the heavier stuff, which is a little different. Which is actually, I'm kind of surprised. Some of my people anyway. I was a little surprised by. I figured that they would be more inclined to some of the more mellower tunes, but it seems like the higher energy things are grabbing people.
They are good ones.
And yeah, it'll be fun to break these down as we go through this.
So yeah, in a nutshell, going back to kind of the surprise release was really why not? And I swear to you, you're not getting another West of House album in a year. We'll talk about that more as the podcast goes on, but what year is it? 2021? 2023, man. That's when you will hear from West of House again. We are in no danger of breaking up. This is by far my most precious and favorite musical entity I have ever been a part of. And I will keep it together if I have to handcuff people to radiators.
It's true, because we probably would break up if we had to do another album in a year.
Oh, I would not do that to people. But 2023, there will be more West of House music. A little secret, there may be like 1 or 2 songs in 2022, but we can't get into that yet.
Yeah.
And maybe some live shows. Shh, quiet, don't tell anyone. And maybe music from other entities. But no new music, really, from West of House in 2022, because we need a break. But we will keep the podcast going, because the podcast brings us joy, and we get the ability to share our experiences with you. And even though, some of the feedback we get is your podcasts are too damn long, we talk too much, and frankly, some of it's interesting. So you're welcome to fast forward.
I bet not only would it be easier to write an album if we were all in the same room, but I bet we could do a shorter podcast if we saw each other more often.
Probably, but what's the point?
That's a good point.
It's free.
That's true.
People are listening literally for free.
Hey, Eric, as we wrap this up, it dawned on me there's something about the music world that I don't have an answer to. So I was looking at our album today, and we'll as we close this up, we'll be plugging all of our music locations and social media stuff. But so I'm an Apple guy, so if I'm looking at my Apple Music, and I'm assuming Spotify and all these others are the same, but when you pull up any album of any band, there's always a couple stars next to a few of the songs. And my assumption is that's based off of popularity or downloads or streams, but we've only had that thing out when we're recording this less than a week. And there's 3 stars. And do you even know off the top of your head which songs have the 3 stars so far?
You know what? I'll confess, I hate Apple with everything within me. And
that's fine.
I'm only a Spotify listener, so enlighten me. I would assume maybe Entwined, since that's a single.
That's one of them. But would you agree that the stars are based off streaming, or is that something you didn't like pre-identify? Like
typically, it's not something we did. Typically, it's the popularity of the stream,
which is crazy because it's only been like 5-6 days
right.
It's been out. But anyway, so Entwined is one, Fall Down is another,
nice.
And Apropos is the third one.
Oh, Apropos.
Woo! So I love that it's like an early song, a closer, and then one rando in the middle. I thought that was kind of cool.
That is
that means
cool.
people are sticking with the whole damn album, and that's when they're, oh my God, and then they must listen to Apropos again. So I think that's really cool.
Well, and that's, I mean, it's the ultimate compliment, really. If someone starts streaming the album and you get to Apropos, which it's not long. We're not Iron Maiden. We're not putting out 80 minutes of album. You know, I think this one is 44 and change. It's not quite 45. So if you're getting to Apropos, you know, thank you. Thank you so much, because we want to take you on the journey. And if you want to go crescendo to Apropos, then it's still under an hour and a half. So that's 2 albums you could get in less time than you can listen to one Iron Maiden album.
Nice plug.
Just throwing that out there. You know, it's up to you, but I think it's time.
And there's more double bass drumming on Drown the Wind than there is on any Iron Maiden album. So there you go.
Well, does Nico do double bass at all?
Yeah,
so
you're not supposed to say that.
So really, you're playing a zero-sum game.
Well, you're not supposed to tell people that. You say we're more metal. We are more metal than Iron Maiden when it comes to drum parts.
All right. Well, you know, at least you're not lying, Tommy. No one can call you a liar. Closing thoughts, gentlemen, on the Drown the Wind experience before, in the next 11 episodes, we dive in to each song. What do you have to say?
Well, I'm excited that we are getting this going again, and just to be able to talk to each other about our experiences. And after our first season, it was pretty encouraging to see how many people actually, individual people, downloaded and listened to that podcast. So I want to thank everyone for listening, all you Westies out there. And just the fact that we got one down under our belt, I think our plan is to continue the same format. So the next 11 episodes will be each dedicated to a song. And we'll see where it goes from there.
Yeah, I have to say that I thought Crescendo was really good, considering what it took to make it. But I just feel like Drown the Wind took a huge step for a sophomore album for a band who's never played together in the same room. I don't know what happened. I don't know who paid who what to make the magic, but it just really jumped up, and it's going to be fun to talk about each song in depth and kind of whittle through that and try to figure it out.
You know, I am really looking forward to diving into this album. I mean, if you guys listen to season 1, We had so many great episodes where we just really ripped apart these songs. You're going to hear stems of, tracks that you may not have noticed. You're going to hear rants, usually from me, because I tend to go on too long. You're going to hear, someone's going to say, "Shut up, Tommy." And we're just diving and tearing apart this album. There's so much more in this one than there is in Crescendo Silence. But it's a complete extension of that album as well. I don't think Drown the Wind exists without Crescendo of Silence. And it's part of what makes it really special. So next episode 2 of season 2, we're going to tackle Nothing Is But What Is Not. And that's pretty much an instrumental track that opens the album. You would think that episode should probably be under an hour. But I would not place bets because God knows what will happen. Bobby Phillips, our mix ninja, will be joining us on that. I think Tommy's being shot into the sun. He's actually gone that day, but he didn't plan it, so he'll be crying somewhere else. But we're going to kind of talk about, we're going to share some secrets on that song, which are really, really fun, which I cannot wait for. The guys didn't even know until I told them, and it's really cool. And also, so if you guys haven't already, Drown the Wind is out. It is available on every single streaming music service ever, except Pandora, who sucks. So you can hear it everywhere except Pandora, who sucks. And so if I just said something bad about Pandora, forget it. They only work with major labels, and I think that's really messed up. So screw them. But everywhere else, you can hear Drown the Wind. And also, we have a video out, don't we, guys?
Do.
A video who was made, by our own drummer, the couch starfish, Tommy Maris. The least painful thing we've ever done, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was pretty easy. I think the first take.
It was easy.
The first take led to the second take, and then we were pretty much done. It was just like, no, not this clip, not this clip. It was just little tiny edits. It wasn't really major.
It's so good, people. It nails the spirit of the song, and we'll talk about that in episode 3. But Entwined is really deep. It's very special to me. It meant a lot to a community out there, and we'll talk about that in episode 3. But you can check that out on YouTube. So go do that. Go listen to the album. Go check out the video on YouTube. Now, who wants to plug the social media? Do you want me to do it, or one of you guys want to take it? Because we haven't done it, for a whole season.
I'll do it.
All right, Lance, don't screw it up.
I'll grab the reins. All right, so social media, not my giftedness. You obviously heard that the big ones, Spotify, Apple Music, are probably the most popular two. We're also on Bandcamp at westofhouse.bandcamp.com. Also on the Facebook, facebook.com/westofhouseband. Instagram.com/westofhouseband. Twitter, all your tweets and jazz out there. Twitter.com/westofhouseband. You're noticing a theme. And one of the things we're still hoping to plug is to subscribe to our YouTube. We've got quite a few things on there, from videos that we've made or Tommy's made or friends have made. We also have some other content. And that's youtube.com/C/westofhouse.
Wait a minute.
Yep.
Wait a minute. Last season, that had like 800 letters and numbers.
That's right.
Are you saying something has changed, Lance?
Yeah, we needed 100 subscribers, which we achieved eventually, and we do appreciate that, all of the fanfare of our Westies. So yes, youtube.com/C/westofhouse, or just put West of House in your search bar, and you should find us pretty easily.
Wow, that is amazing. We did it. I mean, really, we should probably stop the podcast right here.
We're real. We've made it.
We have made it on YouTube. We got our truncated name. Now, just, go give us some views. What you guys are doing. I mean, we're seeing downloads, we're seeing streams, we're seeing views on the videos. You guys are out there, and you guys are all doing this. And we thank you so much. We've said it a million times. We'll say it again. It is an honor and a privilege to serve you with our art, and the fact that it is resonating with people day by day, it blows my mind. I mean, we're affiliated with Tommy, and you guys are still listening to our stuff. I don't get it. I don't understand it, but it's cool.
Oh, very cool.
Tommy's literally asleep on his couch.
Awesome.
He has achieved full starfish. I'm not even sure he's wearing a shirt at this point.
I'm still dressed.
There's
Now,
just
if we rip off,
you ever see
if
the
we
end
rip
of
an
Weird
appendage-
Science with when they turn the brother into, I don't know what they turn him into, like a octopus or something? That's what Tommy looks like right now.
now if we rip off an appendage, does he grow it
No.
back like a starfish?
I don't want to find out.
I'd
I'm a
love to
drummer,
find out.
and losing an appendage would really screw things up.
Okay, why don't you tell that to Rick Allen from Def Leppard?
Well,
Dick.
it screwed some stuff up.
Don't disparage the Lep, Tommy.
If we were as big as
I
Def
will
Leppard
pour some
was
sugar on
right
you.
now, when he had his accident, I think I'd be okay. But that would still
You
suck.
just ruined the whole podcast. You've shut up, Tommy.
Shut up, Tommy.
Okay, well, thank
and
you.
with that, ladies
Thank
and
you
gentlemen,
again, people. That was episode 1 of season 2. We hope you come back next week for episode 2. We will talk about nothing is but what is not. Thank you, Westies, and good night.
Good night.
Sayonara. I got to tell you, all the stray dogs in Cabo have balls, and the size of the ball on a Chihuahua is incredibly bigger than I thought it would be. I'm just telling you.
There's your Easter egg, Lance, right there. All the dogs have balls.
They're incredibly disproportionate.
They are, actually.